Bien, muchas gracias, Iván. Vamos bien de tiempo. Es una frase peligrosa. No vamos bien de tiempo, pero tenemos 5 minutos para alguna pregunta. Si alguien quiere a los ponentes hacer alguna pregunta, es el momento. ¿Alguien? Muy bien. Pablo, tenemos aquí una mano levantada. Y con vuestro permiso, yo después cortaré para avanzar a la mesa redonda, pero no quiero dejar de daros la palabra.
Hi, Michael. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to hear these words right from you and not from Ted. So we are a construction company, Budea. We are the ones that make one of the first here in Madrid, and we are focusing to housing, multifamily housing, using technical wood, using mass timber. And using industrialized process, etc., as a company that maybe you will know, that was called Madera on the States. So we learned very much about that experience. And from that point of view, I would like to have this kind of connection of that you can tell us maybe suggestions or recommendations of what to do if we want to make a successful way into building with wood as a construction company.
Okay.
Like that?
Sure. By the way, I guess I'm on mic already. Yeah. Thank you. So for those that don't know who Madera was a very well-funded startup company doing prefabrication in the United States. It's an interesting story because I think it's incredible when a company can lose $1.5 billion in 4 years. Turns out you can. And it had nothing to do with prefabrication. I think the problem in this story, if you ever hear this story or you know it already, is that I very much believe that industrialization of our process is long overdue, very possible, very economically viable. And their idea was very good. In their case, where they missed is they started buying a lot of construction companies and over-promising what was possible. The challenge in all of our industry is change is hard. The desire to change is there, but the resistance is enormous because the codes can't keep up with change. That's one challenge. Developers that are very successful have a hard time adapting to change. The industry, obviously doesn't learn change very quickly. I think the industrialized process, is essential to affordability, and we need to keep pursuing and pushing. It's really good when you have alignment of development and industrialization together. Wood is the best material for it, clearly, in my mind as well, because of its weight. So one of the important concepts is that, relative to steel and concrete, wood is 1/4 the weight of steel and 1/6 the weight of concrete. And so if you're going to be transporting these materials around, the efficiency of transportation is essential, and wood is the best choice. Wood also has some challenges, and light wood frame in general has some challenges around acoustics and those issues that have to be addressed when you prefabricate. I think what Madera was doing was correct. Unfortunately, because they didn't succeed, I think it set the industry back in North America pretty far. But again, I don't think it had anything to do with their choice of industrialization. I think it's interesting to see what's happening in Germany and Austria and Switzerland, and they're equally having some challenges with it. And one of the issues that we've always thought about is how do you create the concept of mass customization? So this tendency that when we see industrialization, that it means this highly repetitive solution as opposed to something that can be constantly adapted to different communities and contexts. That's the fear in the system, and yet the housing need is so high, we need to find the marriage of those two things. One of the projects I didn't show, and the last comment I'll make to share, is that we are working on a project in Canada because affordability and housing is such a crisis in Canada and the United States and here and everywhere I go. It's the same story. And our government recognizes that the regulatory process of approving housing is a big part of the problem. So in Vancouver, where I live, 1/3 of the cost of your home is the land 1/3 of the cost is the construction, and 1/3 of the cost is regulatory process and taxation. The only thing that can go away like that is the 1/3 that's regulatory process, right? If we do a really good job in industrialization, we have to recognize that if we save 10% of the cost of the construction side, it's still, for most people, only 1/3 of the cost of the overall home. Now that proportion changes where you are. Vancouver's very expensive, so that proportion is where it is. But in other words, we maybe are only affecting 10% of 1/3, right? Which is not enough to make a big, substantial difference. So when we think about affordability and we think about both industrialization, we also have to advocate for new processes of regulation. And the project we're working on in Canada right now is our government recognizing that and pre-approving a portfolio of housing that's mixed size between 2-family and 4-family housing, so not big, this is not bigger multifamily. And you will be able to select, builders or homeowners will be able to select projects from a pre-approved list of projects, many designs from across the country, that then I hope industrializing companies will be able to design to and literally be able to shop as though you're buying something on Amazon, right? To buy a house. That's where we have to get to. But we also need diversity of design, and we need to make sure that, you know, it's not just about the building process, it's really also about advocating on the regulatory side, which I don't yet understand in Spain, but I imagine it's similar everywhere, the issue and the challenge of the regulatory part. So that's a long-winded story, but I applaud and I believe very much that you are moving in the right direction with industrialization. And some of the projects we just saw were excellent examples of that. You know, and the prefabrication of bathroom pods and kitchen pods and these things, I think, are very, very, very viable. So.
Hi, Michael. Also, it's a question for you. I come from Finsa. It's a wood manufacturing company. We produce from CL2 structures to wood facades. In fact, we produce with them the structure you saw there. And my question is dealing also with the profile of a company like Entekra or Caterra. That was totally vertical integration. And my question is, in the Spanish market, we are trying to deal with a more, I will say, creating a value chain of industrialization, dealing with construction companies, production companies, developers, architects, engineering companies. We will say it's more a whole value chain that it will maybe take more time to align this whole value chain, but maybe will be more sustainable on the time. And this is my question. No? What do you think about, because we don't have big projects to create big vertical integrated companies like Entekra or Caterra. No? We are a more widespread market. What do you think about this model? No, more value chain, little by little, and creating a whole ecosystem of industrialized construction, in this case of wood. No.
Yeah. So I think that's good. I think vertical integration does make some sense. I mean, the reason we all have phones in our pockets is because the tech industry understood that through vertical integration they can, you know, shave pennies off of every component in our phone, and that brought the price into, you know, from big laptops to phones in a very short amount of time. Our industry, because we tend not to be vertically integrated, have a really hard time making those kinds of decisions, and of course, every player in the system marks up the system, and everybody makes more money. So there are advantages to vertical integration, but there are obviously huge risks to it as well. And that's that there isn't enough competition in the market. So when you have, you know, a more broad marketplace of potential partners, you're going to be able to create more competition in that way. And I think that's healthier in the long run. I think that's correct. That's a more robust system with less risk. And Caterra proved that to some degree, right, of the scale of risk of failure. Now, again, I don't think it was because of the idea with Caterra. It was a little bit because of their overestimating their potential too quickly, you know. They were overselling the idea too quickly. But I think I support that a lot. And competition is essential. I mean, one of the most common things I hear is, you know, even for us in Canada or in the United States, is there enough? Are there enough people that know how to build this way? Are there enough, you know, suppliers? Does the supply chain, is it predictable enough? And the truth is that used to be a real challenge even in North America, even in British Columbia, and we are a center of forestry in the world. It was a challenge, and now it's much less so. There's you know 8, 9, 10 companies in North America that make CLT, for instance, but that didn't, you know, we had one before. So it changes very quickly, and you can see that in France too. The truth from a forestry point of view is you know, the model in Austria works quite well of vertical integration. It's integral to small community-based forestry, where the forestry town produces the forest products, cuts the trees, creates the forest products, you know, powers their town off the wood waste, and then builds everything in their community that way. And I think that's something, you know, certainly in parts of France with strong forest economies would be lovely to see here.
Creo que tenemos una última pregunta allí. Ya solo nos da tiempo para una más. Ahí está. Perfecto.
Hola. Sí. Mi pregunta, escuchando el comentario de Ibán sobre una de las grandes ventajas de la madera, hablaba que era la facilidad con la que se trabajaba a escalas milimétricas, ¿no? O mínimas. Yo creo que los arquitectos nos movemos siempre en conceptos y escalas, lo cual es muy importante. Y precisamente por eso me ha llamado mucho la atención que en los ejemplos que han dado tanto Michael como Ibán no he visto ventanas de madera, he visto ventanas de aluminio. Y me ha incluso parecido ver de PVC. ¿Por qué no de madera? ¿Por qué no se ha planteado una... Vamos, está planteada, pero ¿por qué no colocáis los arquitectos que estáis trabajando con madera a gran escala y con un concepto ecosostenible, también llevar este elemento constructivo que, por otro lado, es el puente térmico más importante en la membrana de la fachada? Es que me sorprende.
A mí no me miréis. Ibán, no sé.
No, que tienes toda la razón. Que es un campo que queda todavía por explotar y por trabajar. Sí, totalmente de acuerdo. Sí. Totalmente de acuerdo. Quizá porque estamos centrados un poco en la estructura y en pelear la estructura y soluciones estructurales, pero ahora que la ventana es otro terreno donde...
Es el concepto de un total, un conjunto.
Sí.
Y mucho más cuando, repito, es el puente térmico mayor, es el mayor puente térmico que existe en una edificación. Es decir, es el punto que realmente va a definir si un edificio es sostenible o no, porque es por ahí por donde va a haber el escape o la fuga energética, ¿no?
Pues solo puedo decirte que
estoy
de acuerdo contigo.
Václav Smil, el checo que vive en Canadá, ¿no? Los números no mienten, decía que había hecho un estudio de todos los temas, pues, de absorción, de carbón, y que en realidad era una tontería, porque él había comprobado con números que si cambiaban todas las ventanas de vidrio monolítico que existen al día de hoy todavía en Estados Unidos y en Canadá, pues la eficiencia energética de esas viviendas o de esos edificios aumentaba exponencialmente y el gasto era mínimo. Entonces, no sé, me ha llamado mucho la atención. Yo invito sobre todo a...
Pero sí te digo que además... Perdón, buenos días. Que además de un tema térmico, que efectivamente es un puente térmico, también es un tema acústico. Y es verdad que las ventanas de aluminio ahora mismo los fabricantes, por el gace que tienen, los vidrios que entran muchas veces no soportan el peso, incluso el espesor de un doble vidrio o un triple vidrio de las necesidades de los mapas acústicos en las grandes ciudades.
Pues entonces más a mi favor, la madera sí que lo soporta.
No, es la madera la que no lo soporta, porque tiene un galce pequeño. Los que suele haber tienen un galce pequeño que no entra en esos vidrios con una cámara de 16.
No.
Y cuando tienes, bueno, las que nosotros hemos estudiado en España, hemos estudiado en Polonia, hemos estudiado varias marcas, ¿no? El tema acústico por los vidrios son muy difíciles de encontrar que cumplan los galces que necesitas. Entrarán, pero a día de hoy todavía no tienen esa resistencia, sobre todo no térmica, sino acústica, los fabricantes españoles,
Yo
por lo
creo-
menos, y en algunos países.
Yo creo que tenéis que mirar más. Yo creo que sí que
Para
hay.
eso estamos, para eso estamos. Entonces, y tendremos, y esta sala a esto invita, ¿no? Y esto es lo que también queremos proponer, que de aquí salgan muchas ideas, contactos e investigación.